And Generation Y is, a lovely quote actually from somebody else, is snapping at its heels so rapidly that actually the prognosis for Generation X and its power is probably quite minimal. So strangely enough, Generation X, and I don't wish to be worrying to all of you that fall into that in the audience, looks like being quite a challenge generation, because Generation Y seems better equipped to cope with this massively social world that we've been talking to this morning. It's a debatable view. I'm not saying that it's 100% right, but there is some element of truth in it, I think.
Are you a Generation Xer? Are you feeling left out?
I was feeling very, very unloved in that, but...
I do, yeah. My wife is also Generation X, and I'm always telling her the same. So.
You can take the organisation away from us, though, but we'll always have punk rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
I rest my case entirely.
Okay. Jim Reed from Arab, if you could just...
Amazing task. He's got a sprint all the way around here now.
That's right. Yeah, Edward's up to it. He is.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yes, Jim Reed from Arup. Some pretty amazing and mind-blowing stuff from all three of you, actually, which I think was summed up in one of Dave's last slides there about the little guy on his bike with his helmet and his dad just about to let him go, which probably symbolises the fact that, okay, we've been slaves to the technology for so long, but now everybody really understands it and doesn't care, and it's all about working in a different way and working better, and the technology we can just take for granted. But an even more mind-blowing thing was that first question when the lady said, do I need wires? Now, is that the sort of question that we should be answering? Is that sort of question we should be addressing? Because surely that indicates that people haven't actually gripped it yet, and we're still tied to the technology. What do you think?
Well, absolutely, and we see this problem. For me, it's the IT guys clinging on for dear life to be important and relevant. And wires are reliable. They're nice, solid things. You can go quite fast down them, not like that dodgy wireless stuff. But for me, you take a look in any Starbucks that you see, any McDonald's, any station, and then you count the wires. And the only wires you'll see will be people who'll hanging around, any 3-pin plug socket they can find, because that's the only bit of technology we've yet to fix is battery life. But so I think we really see these two worlds. There is the old world of technology as this critical part of the infrastructure. So actually, it's a symbiotic relationship where it just is part of what we do, and we don't want to see it.
I'd like to go slightly further than that. I think that's symbolic of issues of control and organisational control that goes back to the sorts of things I was talking about mass broadcast and this central controlling point. What probably needs to happen to bring about kind of hybrid organisation is it's not a lack of control, but a little bit like the picture. It's learning when to take your hand off the back of the cycle. So there is still structure, but there's an awful lot of latitude and a lot of trust. And it's a kind of much more co-endeavour, if you like. And I think the wire thing almost belongs in that control type category, really. And if you look at your organisations, you will see so many signs of this, what I would call 80s, 90s controldom. And all of that is challenged by this. It's all kind of second order authority, and it's all going to be challenged by it. And it's how an organisation wakes up to that, and the technology is just part of it. I mean, what lies much deeper in the technology is that it's the overarching philosophy of the organisation, actually. So, and I think that's the measure of the challenge.
Thank you.
There's a question just in front of Jim, lady in red.
Hello, Bridget Hardy from the Government Property Unit. I saw the jelly bean type approach at Microsoft demonstration in the Netherlands in January, and I think it offers us the answer if we can use it properly to managing our time. And I don't think it's about being available all the time. I think it's actually about limiting our availability when we want to, but actually using all those pockets of time when we are available by not chasing around trying to find people in the building or ringing up to find out if they're available, will know. But the difficulty, I think, is how long will it take to move to a situation where people feel comfortable about posting their status updates all the time? Because it feels, for a lot of people, it feels trivial. I think, and intrusive to have to do it. How does an organisation get to the point where it encourages people to say where they are and what they're doing without it looking like the control and the Big Brother bit where we want to track you all the time? And I just want to know what your thoughts are about the transition. You know, will it happen automatically because that's what we do in our social networking, or can an organisation actually make it happen?
No, it's a fundamental question, Bridget. I think that the idea of the jelly bean solves so many problems. You know, the idea that you go to Fred's office to try and find him and he's not there, or someone's got the jacket on the back of the seat, so you think they're around somewhere. But the jelly bean then solves all those problems, that you just don't need to go and find them in the traditional office. You know where they are. You know if they're available or what they're up to, and you can begin to trust and know how to communicate with them, because they can control when you can interrupt or when you can connect. And my gut feel is it will happen organically. I certainly think the next generation who are living through social networking are used to the fact that people connect based on their real-time status. And all those who are using Yahoo, MSN and so on are used to showing their availability. So the idea that the jelly bean will begin to be used in that way is one thing. But when you see what Microsoft have done with co-authoring, I mean, the idea that you can be working on a Word document with others simultaneously at the same time, and you can see all the different texts and the people and their jelly beans, that then truly gets you to collaborate without bringing people into a meeting or a meeting room.
Can't you switch the jelly bean on and then go and fix the patio? I mean, can't you cheat with jelly beans?
Absolutely you can.
Yeah.
But it's about, you know, if you're in an organisation where you feel you need to cheat, wrong organisation.
Yeah. Okay.
I think to pick up your point as well, that and it takes us back to social networking in general. Why does social networking work? Because not only does it connect us to one another, but we become very used to the benefits of connection. The benefits of giving details about where we are and what we're doing to groups mean that we get a more enriched life as a result of it. So it comes down to whether the organisation introduces such things around benefits, not necessarily to the organisation, but to the individual as part of the organisation. And that again goes back to a kind of cultural, philosophical change that's required. So it's putting all those things together. But I think benefits is the key. I mean, when people talk to me about social media in general, I always say that this works because it's massively beneficial for the individual. And because we can see the benefits, we give more of ourselves than logically at times we might say that we would do. And the same is true of this. You know, we get these questions about presence and, you know, can we turn it off and do things? But it doesn't work if you actually turn it off and you break the benefit. So it comes down to, I think, to understanding those kinds of things.
Okay, we've got time for one last question. The gentleman here, in the grey shirt.
I'm Clark Elliott, workplace strategist from Geneva. I just have a question for the three of you about paper use, printing, if you saw any trends or changes with the generations, with the technologies, and where do you think it's going? I know I struggle with so many clients, I mean, public printers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you see for the future in that?
Okay.
Well, I think you can struggle with paper, and the paperless office we've heard about for so long. I don't think it will ever happen. But I think what will happen is an idea of a digital flow. The idea that almost everything we originate digitally. So why keep the paper? You know, it is somewhere, you know, stored digitally. The other thing that I see coming is that what you now see on screen, you can no longer print on paper. So that whereas before, you know, Word in effect took paper and made it digital, now using portals and other intranet type solutions, what you're reading on screen has depth, and you can't just hit the print button and read it on paper offline. So that's the beginning of the end.
I think there is a generational thing. The kind of digital native generation is a screen-based generation. It's a highly visual generation. One of the challenges is it's used to and wants to see complex information that we would typically structure in linear or more text-based forms, actually more pictorially. They're not so massively paper-oriented at all. So I think there's a move anyway that's just naturally going to be achieved, assuming that the groups above them are going to allow it to happen. It will just be held back. It will happen eventually. It's whether it gets torn away, so to speak, or happens naturally.
From a technology perspective, I think the whole paperless office thing was a misnomer. You know, nobody ever said there will be no paper. There should be less, though. And I think where we've struggled in the past is because we've actually lacked the technology to make that dream come true. And I'll give you an example of, why do I print a boarding pass? That's dumb. You know, that should be on my mobile device because I'm carrying that anyway. And we're now beginning to see that through things like, you know, barcode, Microsoft Tag, all those sorts of technologies are making that possible, where actually, you know, even my payment could be done through the mobile device. And I think as that technology evolves, we really will see the decline, but not the demise, of the need to print.